This is an era of partnering. And now, the most senior people at every company are speaking in partner language, which is fantastic.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inside Partnering. Excited to have this new podcast starting up here and super excited to be joined today by Jay McBain. Jay, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yeah. And gosh, Jay, you practically need no introduction, but I will do a short one. Chief analyst for Canalys. And Jay, you're like the Pied Piper of the partnership industry icon, and speaking regularly all the time, and always a wealth of knowledge. So I'm just really excited to have you on, Jay.
Absolutely. I spent 30 years trying to kind of figure out the system beneath things, but I was once told when I joined the World Future Society that no one can predict the future and no one has a crystal ball. But if you do recognize trends and trains that are on the tracks, picking up speed, the best futurists, all they do is gauge, that projection, that speed, and try to project at some point in the future where that train is going to be. Now, if it's a train station and you see 10 or 15 trains, leaving the station, and you can connect the dots between all of those, that's the Pied Piper part of this, is just trying to have enough time in the day, to connect how all this is going to shape up in the next, 6, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years.
Well, speaking of which, I think a good place to start, Jay, is when we started working together 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. We were on this journey together talking about partnerships and the changing in the industry and everything. You made the bold statement that around maybe 5 or 6 years ago, this is going to be the next 10 years. So it's the decade of the ecosystems. We're halfway through that decade, and very well done on the prediction.
So far. So many trains, looking at marketing, looking at sales, looking at customer success, looking at growth of industries and subscription consumption, obviously looking at the growth of the cloud back then, but AI today, which is a total ecosystem play. All those trains, would lead us to the situation that, all roads lead to partnering. And while the word ecosystem didn't really stick, it was nebulous, it was kind of vague, maybe isn't the right explanation for what we do. The word that is sticking is platform.
Yeah.
The richest, most valuable companies on Wall Street, the ones that are achieving unbelievable valuations, the people that are achieving unbelievable wealth. We're going to have the first trillionaires minted in the next number of years here in AI. And it's all around running platforms. Nobody does it alone. The alliances, the integrations, all of the partnerships around the cycle. Platforms is synonymous with partnering. And now we're not this side group in the company that runs dealerships anymore. We're at the board level, talking about minting billionaires and getting companies to $1 trillion valuation. So it couldn't be more exciting midway through this decade.
Well, and if you don't have partners and an ecosystem of partners, then you don't have a platform, right? I mean, but you're right.
There's 5 types, right? It's, you need those integration partners because your buyer is now an integration first buyer. Now millennials are the majority buyer in the tech industry. You need the services and channel partnerships because there's 7 partners that surround every one of your customers. If you happen to be in cybersecurity, for example, 91.6% of your TAM is bought to, through, and with partners. So channels are pretty cool if you want to grow your cyber company. Now, you need the alliances. You need to play well with the hyperscalers. You need to play well with the SaaS platforms, the big cyber platforms that we just mentioned. You need to play well with AI platforms nowadays. So the alliances are true, but what every company cares about is the go-to-market, marketing, sales, and customer success. All of the co-selling, co-marketing, co-innovation, the co-keeping, everything around the cycle now revolves around partners. So that's what a platform is. It isn't, just a bundling a product and a new price bundle. It is not just a fancy UI or UX, that sits on top of the product. This is an era of partnering. And now, the most senior people at every company are speaking in partner language, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It really is. It really has been a transformation, I think, from the old days where partnering was just purely reselling is still there today, but there are so many more dimensions, I think, with the capabilities and flexibilities of APIs and published APIs that companies come together, build solutions together, and then go to market. And why wouldn't you do all those things? Co-develop, co-market, co-sell, co-keep. So what is that all? What's coming over the next 5 years, and how should for the second half of the decade, and how should partner leaders be thinking about that?
Yeah, well, it continues to accelerate. Day in and day out, I'm on back-to-back calls. Looking at every industry and looking at every category of product, hardware, software, services. But in the future, I mean, maybe I'll hand it to Microsoft, which called the AI era, a $6.5 trillion opportunity, a build-up. And this isn't Microsoft's team. They're speaking purely in ecosystem terms. They understand that a chunk of that is NVIDIA, the fastest growing company and really the winner, super winner of AI so far. They're thinking about OpenAI, which obviously they're heavily invested in. And ChatGPT 5 just came out this week.
Yeah.
But they're thinking about all the partners, the 7 partners that surround every dollar of that TAM. So that's the speak, OpenAI themselves think it's a $7 trillion build-up. But the fact of the matter is no one is talking about an individual company TAM. They're talking about the amount of consulting, the amount of design and architecture work, the implementations, the integrations, the managed services, hundreds of services and layers upon technology that's going to bring this to bear. There's not one super winning company monopoly that's going to win the next 20-year era of AI. And that's for all of us, wherever we fit in this industry, whatever the size of our company, whatever industry, whatever geo we live in, whatever segment that we serve, whatever way we kind of look at the market, it's going to be partnering first.
Totally. I absolutely agree. And, both in terms of services and also technology integration, data services, let's talk about AI. How should partner leaders be thinking about both in terms of how to partner with AI companies to provide better value for their customers, but also in terms of how should they be implementing or using AI internally as well? I kind of think of it as both directions, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, on the external side, AI-related services are growing at 59.3% compound. They have been for the last couple of years. They expect to over the next 3 or 4 years as we project out. And that's exponential growth. And anytime you're growing north of 50%, the numbers are doubling every other year. So this is a massive growth curve. But as a partner, I would be much more quantitative. There's $158 billion. And that's broken down by what stage of the customer's in. There's 28 moments before the sale to sell services. Now, if you're selling consulting, if you're selling design architecture work, you could be selling all kinds of configuration price quoting. You can be selling a lot. Post sale, you're selling integration or implementation services. You're selling managed services. But I want to break down that $158 billion in AI services. Break it down to the market we focus on. Do I focus on a particular geography? Many partners have a 50-mile range of how far the trucks used to run. Some look at an industry. There's 27 industries or 297 sub-industries. Some of them look not geographically or by industry. Some of them look by segment. We service customers at 250 employees up through 499. We're in the medium space, and that's where we do really, really well. Some service different buyer types. We service a CMO. We service a CX leader. Some service product categories. I'm an expert in identity cybersecurity. And we just saw CyberArk got acquired by Palo Alto last week. And those types of things excite us. Well, I'm an expert in services types. We're experts in managed services, or we're experts in consulting. So, there's 6 different ways to think about that bigger number in my own available market below my own target addressable market. Now, when I think about obtaining that, it's where do I specialize? what vendors, should I build certifications and competencies? How do I differentiate myself among a million different partners, more than a million,
Mhm.
and 10 million
Mhm.
people competing for 7 spots around the customer? So I would be obsessed, first of all, with the numbers, and I'd build myself an obtainable market, in the millions of dollars of growth in a new business practice or a new way to be born in AI, and go build a really profitable, fast growing little section of the market.
Well, I think that's terrific, and it's something that you hear all of the cloud providers say the same thing. It's like there's a lot of noise. They're big. They've got 50,000 salespeople, and they're like, how do you ever get attention from 50,000 people? There's no way you're going to. You have to really segment and find the niche that you're really going after and that you're good at, and you can build a name for, and then you can expand from there.
Yeah, here's an important thing for any company, really of any size, but especially partners. When we went through the Google SEO phase, every day we woke up thinking about the algorithm, how we're going to stuff keywords, how we're going to, but that created a lot of digital sameness.
Hmm.
When you look at, Accenture with 750,000 people, and then you look down to Larry in the white van, running a small bar, everybody cut and paste the same words on their website. Their ebooks started looking the same and everything. So Google kind of had to build the algorithm, and anybody who was the same got knocked down. Anybody who shouted from the rooftops that, I serve mid-sized banks in northern Scotland and don't come to Inverness unless, as a bank, if you don't talk to me, it's the people that hyper specialized that didn't have to buy their way to the top of the Google rankings. They got
Yeah.
their own. And now with AI, here's the problem. It's not really algorithm anymore. It's an intelligent system it's already read your website cover to cover. It's already read, every tweet and every LinkedIn post you've ever made. It knows all your people and has read their entire histories too. It knows more than their resume. It knows exactly who you are. So as much as you want to say all things to all people all the time, the bigger hyperscalers, AWS, Microsoft, Google, would rather you come in and say, hey, don't come to Inverness as a bank unless you're ready to talk to me. I'm the gate, I'm the filter here. Everybody knows that I'm the one. And once you can do that successfully, the problem with Accenture is they have to say that 700,000 times. And no one now with AI, kind of ChatGPT version 5, just go, do that, look at yourself and say, am I winning the recommendation? Am I winning at a local level to go win that consulting engagement at a mid-sized bank? And this is just a completely different world. And it's only in the last 6 months that this has happened.
So Jay, let's get real tactical for a minute. One of the challenges I think that partner leaders have is demonstrating value internally for, as everybody's competing for resources, right? How do you show the value that you and your organization have delivered to the company? What would be your advice in terms of measurement and the things that partner leaders should be measuring and then showing back internally to show their value?
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have spent a long time on this topic, which is, when you operationalize this, you start thinking about the processes, the workflows, the business logic, and especially the underlying technology that's going to allow you to do this. When
Hmm.
I say that there's 28 moments that come before a sale, it's easy to say that, look at a flywheel and, understand the concept because we've all bought a car and spent those 28 moments, in the buying cycle. But until you can go and work with your head of marketing and recognize those moments and be able to quantify those moments, because 90% of them plus are going to be partner driven.
Hmm.
And that's in the best case scenario for a company that they're actually seeing 10% of the moments that their customers are doing, 1 or 2 moments. Well, in the worst case scenario, you're going to lose a deal without ever knowing there was a deal. So if I'm the head of marketing and people are out reading ebooks and listening to podcasts like this one, they're going to events like we went to Black Hat last week. That's they're out doing this, getting smart. These are partners or prospective partners that are leading these moments. The earlier I can get in and work with my head marketing and put these moments into the system so we recognize them, As salespeople, we know, like the earlier you see a deal, your better chance of winning. And then the selling moments, like when that partner is in consulting, that's when most deals are done nowadays. None of them are done at the point of sale.
Yeah.
You don't wait 28 moments and then be at the cash register. Oh, I'm going to buy this pack of gum too. I'm going to do this. This isn't a consumer sale. It's a considered purchase. So the SKUs and all the marketplace and however it's done, I mean, that was done 2 months ago. So we're looking at this visualization now that the partners are leading most of the moments, and the better I can work with marketing, sales, customer success, wherever this is, before, during, or after the transaction, and I can link into the systems we already use, but I can get the recognition of more partnering moments coming into our process. This is where the CMO, the CRO, and the CX leader, the product leaders, go back to the board and say, hey, we need more of that. We can't be running our own tech stack in that. We can't be out running our own systems, delighted by the reports that they're generating, and delighted that on our own vanity metrics that we made up for ourselves, we're doing great. We got to have the other executives in the team out there shouting from the rooftops that they need more of us. And until we can connect those dots from a technology perspective, we can measure, monitor, and manage those moments.
Yeah.
And make those data points more reliable, more repeatable, and more scalable. This is the career path of channel leaders, partner leaders as well. You're going to take that every 3.1 years into a new job, and you're going to be walking in with these tech stacks, driving it to the next level.
Terrific. So we've talked about the future of partnerships, where things are going, measurement. What should you be looking at? Let's talk about incentives and how as a partner leader, the kinds of incentives that you should be considering or putting in place for partners to get aligned on so that their objectives are the same as your objectives, that they feel like they're aligned with they're supporting your objectives. I think for years it was the gold, silver, bronze. I think there have been a lot of changes to the more of a points system and looking at full life cycle incentives. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing, Jay, in terms of incentives for partners.
Yeah, there's two angles to this conversation. One is that for 44 years, go back to August 12, 1981, kind of the formation of the first tech channel around the introduction of the IBM PC. For 43 of those years, every time we survey partners around the world, tens of thousands of them, the number one thing they want from vendors is more leads. And this year, something changed. The number one thing they're now asking vendors is to be recognized for more than just being a cash register. Mm-hmm. So incentivize me around the customer journey. If I'm doing that early ebook, if I'm doing the consulting gig, if I'm doing design work, if I'm doing implementations, this adds a lot of value to your company. It's about time you recognize that, quantify that, and pay me for that. So it's now the number one thing. They're pushing vendors. So yesterday I posted that out of the top 1,000 vendors, about 400 of them now have point systems. Some of them have hybrid. They still do some gold, silver, bronze on the retail side. Some of them, like Microsoft and Cisco, and yesterday AppPoint, have gone 100% into points, basically doing what partners are asking. We've never just been a cash register. We've always added value. You've just never seen that. Now you have to survive. Well, it's about time to move around the economics of partnering and to highlight, if I'm doing that consulting engagement that wins you the deal, that's worth more than 10% margin that you might have paid in resale.
Right.
So the economics, your competitor might pay 20 or 30% of the deal for that, winning that moment. So now it's measuring all these things that we've never measured before and recognizing partners for what they really are, is delighting and serving the customer before, during, and after the transaction. But that's the future of incentives. All the incentives, companies are building muscles on how to attach. And again, you're talking with CFO, it's got to be reliable, repeatable, scalable. Like this has to pass muster. We can't be overpaying these. We can't be paying on faulty, type of connections. The second thing, kind of into that point system, it's just a future in terms of how ecosystems themselves will be funded. Now we know, because the big marketplaces, the hyperscalers, only charge 3% or less for a transaction.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense because that's exactly the amount that MasterCard or Visa charges you, when you go to a restaurant. That's the cost of moving money. Now, the average vendor out there in this $5 trillion industry holds back about 20% in gross to nets, what they used to pay as front end margins, back end margins, spiffs, market development funds. So you start to ask, 20 minus 3 is 17%. Where does that money go? Do they just take it back as profit margin? Well, no, none of the companies have. They recognize they have to go and redeploy that 17% in all these moments. By the way, Microsoft, you'd think that they'd buy up all the consulting and stuff. They're already outgrowing AWS for 26 straight quarters. They've taken 2/3 of all that money into retention. They want to renew customers at 108%, upsell, cross-sell, enrich them with Copilot and other things. So they went to Wall Street and said, we're actually moving the money. So we're now a cash engine. Every dollar that comes in, we're going to spit out $1.08. And that made them more valuable than Apple. It's just an absolute, utility-based or consumption-based cash engine. Every company's kind of looking at these metrics now going, as much as I want to get more customers to the dance, obviously get more of those customers on the dance floor, everything in a subscription consumption economy is about keeping them dancing all night long. Every 30 days, getting that extra 8% of enrichment. And that's where I can invest in partnerships. Because it's not going to be me, my 1-800 help desk, enriching that customer and keeping them going.
Jay, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your deep knowledge, both your own personally as well as the research that Canalys does on a regular basis, and that you're sharing with everyone. This has been fantastic. Thanks for taking some time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here, and good luck on the podcast.
Terrific. So thank you all for joining again, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.